How are you?
Hey, Spike. Hey, Sid.
Hey Spike. Hey Savage,
Hey.
how you doing?
Good, man. Good to see you.
Good. What time is it out there? I'm hitting on 8 o'clock over here. Sun
Ooh,
looks
are
nice
you?
and bright down there.
Yeah, we're at 7. Sabith, you're at 5, maybe?
5, yeah. Yeah,
That's a good
Yeah.
time of day.
it sure is, yeah. Just
It's
woke up from a nap.
Ah.
Siesta time, eh?
I love my naps.
Siesta,
Yeah,
man.
man.
Saves the world. I think everybody needs a siesta when you're working through. Spain did it right.
I'm ready for bed. Tired today, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's it going,
What's
Spike?
Yeah, good man. How are you, Sid? Well, I guess I haven't seen you for a month there.
Yeah, man. It's been just a crazy run. I'm starting to pick up, and just I've been working behind the scenes on some projects, and this year I'm operating quite a bit of grants. Shot you a quick email with an update. I don't know if you got it, but I'm running on 4 project grants this year, so it's a heavy season. Yeah, it's a good season. It's going to be eventful. Hasn't really picked up yet in terms of operating the grants, so it's really been more behind the scenes, the quiet before the storm. So I've been doing just some background. That's why I like the freelance stuff. I kind of just try to set up now, because come May it just starts to pick up. It's already like I'm already jumping into some grant sessions for the year, so usually between May to November is what I've kind of like phased in as my operating term for like all these project grants. I try to get it after last year's run. It was such an extension, whereas it felt like I was working on these grants for like 12 months, which they can kind of extend to, right? So I'm now finding how to speed it up. But a lot of the grants from Toronto Arts Council, and it's just different projects. One of them is a research. 2 of them were funded last year. One is still kind of operating this year, that year. So yeah, it's just getting into that wave of like, how do I treat this as like a cycle that I can knock out in 3 months versus like 6 months to even a 12-year project. But yeah, a lot of strategy behind that. I realized a lot of strategy. I made it huge last year. So yeah, I mean, it's good. It's good. I got an announcement for some more funding. So that's always good news. So
congrats.
Well, congrats.
Thanks. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you've got 4 grants confirmed.
Let me see. So I'm operating on 2 grants funded last year, so confirmed for sure. One personal grant. So I'll actually break it down so you guys know. I'm one of these fans is a lot of these grants are on Scarborough Made and doing documentary photography and youth mentorship. So we're trying to turn Scarborough Made into a nonprofit. I kind of pitched that last year to Toronto Arts Council. They have this grant called Open Door, which is it's the only grant that allows you to apply to an unlimited amount of funding. You could say 100K. Yeah, it's crazy. Wow. But you need to be able to back it up. So if you're applying for over 30K, you probably need financial statements. If you're doing over 50, you probably want to audited financial statements, and you want to be able to show other sources of revenue. So I did a 30K fund, and I got the 30K. I've been good with that. So everything I'm applying to, also I'm trying to get the numbers for anything. And in terms of an artist collective, I always try to make sure that we're hitting over 10K. So that there's this crazy benchmark that we're now trying to hit for Scarborough Made to turn it into nonprofit. So we need to be able to bring in at least 75K every year.
Wow.
In order to so it can be eventually be eligible for operational funding. So that way, instead of me applying for like 4 grants for Scarborough Made, I can do one 100K grant, and then be funded for a year, 2 years in terms of operation. So I'm trying to get to that level. So a lot of the grants with Scarborough Made, we're going to be coming into we just got confirmed. This recent fund that we got was for doing a project in the East End, close to Golden Mile. So it's a neighborhood over here that used to be very heavily around industry. The Queen of England actually visited at one time. It was the first place. Yeah, historically it was an industrial park. So there's a lot of stuff that now if you see it, it's like, a low income neighborhood. Nobody really talks about it, doesn't get the shine, but it was the first place in Canada that had a cinema inside a mall.
Oh, wow.
So, the Queen visited that part, back then. So, a lot of history here and there. And then I'm doing a residency with a library, with Toronto Public Library. So that's a personal grant that I got. So yeah.
Wow.
That's been my major revenue source that got me back into the creative game, I'd say.
So you've got the grant game nailed.
I think I started. I'm scratching the surface in terms of what I could do. I feel.
Do you think
I'm
so?
only a municipal funding. I haven't tapped into provincial or federal funding yet, and that's what I'm trying to do
Wow.
this year. So
Wow.
it's all City of Toronto and Toronto Arts Council, which has been kind of like my funding body. A lot of them is strategic grants. So the writing, I'd say the writing has been, key. Sometimes it takes me around 2 weeks to bump out a proper grant where, I'm confident with it. And
Yeah.
I'm typically going between a month with research and grant writing, depending on it. And then, balancing it because there's so many tiny requirements that you have to make sure that you're hitting for each grant. If you get this funding, you can't get that funding. So a lot of planning strategy, but it's been a good run from last year, and I'm trying to, get back into this cycle this year to get more in, and then now balance it with the freelance.
Yeah. The application process for grants is, I feel like it's similar to pitching, isn't it? It's so much, you've got to write down what you're trying to do, why you're trying to do it, who you're trying to do it for, who's the audience, what does success look like, and man, it takes some effort, and it's a big gamble. So well done.
Yeah, that's the fun part. Thank you. It's been a good run. I'm looking forward to knocking out a couple more this year. So if you guys got questions on grants in the Toronto scene, let me know. I'm always happy to share.
Actually, on a different note, I teach a nonprofit management class at my university. At some point, I'd love to have you come and talk about your strategies. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'd love to. More than happy to. I'm trying to build a nonprofit, and I had some experience managing the students' unions on my campus. So I think a lot of that joy for creating initiatives came from being a student and starting the Hip Hop Foundation at my campus. Nice. And just looking at that as like a venue to get funding in, and now being able to take this as a passion project and turn it into a nonprofit. Yeah, it's right down the road of what I've been doing with international development. So yeah, more than happy to connect anytime.
Cool. Yeah, wonderful.
Wow, that'd be great. I think you've got a lot of knowledge on that, Sid. Honestly, you've probably got more knowledge on grant funding than myself, for sure. I'm probably a jack of all trades, but the largest grant I ever had was 20,000.
Okay.
Which was enough, and I only manage, maybe I've never managed to overlap them like you. I've managed to get one, and then it will be a few months, and then I'll get another, and then I'll get another. So
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know how I pulled off what I did last year. It was a pandemic that kind of made it align. So we took, the project that I did last year. I was like, really like that, being able to take Scarborough Made from a very small project where we put our own money in and we crowdfunded it into like people were amazed at what you could accomplish. And we took maybe. I heard this. I got this from someone when I was chatting. That money attracts money. So when you get funding, you start to shop it around more to be like, hey, we got funded for this, and it should hopefully get you some more some more funding in the door. But we turned last year's project. We lumped some 2 funding pots together, and then we were able to get the city to secure some more funding. After another application. So we did about 50K. That project was a 50K production, right?
Yeah.
The harder part is how much do you actually, eat off that with the work.
Yeah.
And with the nonprofit side, it is, I wouldn't say that it's as lucrative, but it's fulfilling.
Yeah.
That was a test to be like, well, how much is reasonable? Like, and I think when you enjoy something, you tend to put a lot more in than you're getting out. And we're trying to reverse that this year because we realize it's not sustainable in the long run. To do what we did last year, and we put a lot of energy in, we wouldn't be able to run it this year again the same way. So now it's kind of like rinse and repeat. How do I keep on flipping stuff, and maybe even say no to certain grants that are requiring us to do a lot more reporting, like the city, for example. The metrics, the reporting that you have to put in the final report, it tends to be a lot. And I'm used to the larger scale project management reports where you're working a salary. It's fine when you write these large reports, but if your final report's taking you like a month to do, it's probably not that smart anymore. So you got to find a way to size it down.
Yeah. The trick, you're right. The trick is figuring out how much you can use personally, because you've got to get paid. I don't think any of us are in this to get rich,
No,
but
no,
you
for
know,
sure.
you still have to.
Oh,
You
I
still
won't
gotta.
complain, Spike, if I get
Oh, mate.
I won't complain. I don't know
Yeah.
about you.
If the riches come, the same. I won't complain. How are you,
Nice.
Sabith? What's going on, man?
Good. Nothing. It's a slow period, Mike, for me, creatively, because there's a lot going on at work all of a sudden. My
Right.
students are graduating, so there's a lot of just the grind of getting them out the door. So I have to sign off a lot of forms, and just I have an administrative role as well. So I'm the program director of my program, so that takes up a lot of my time. However, I do have, I think, sort of a good news. I did pitch my color story to Nat Geo.
No way.
Yeah, and I heard back from
Sick.
the editor. She seemed interested. However, she said I need to run this by another editor who's a fabrics expert, and she said I'll get back to you. I don't know what that means. She
That
hasn't.
means she might or she might not. But
Yeah,
what it definitely means is that you can send her at least another 10 emails.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Hey, that's really good, man. Congratulations.
Thank you. So that's a good little, positive sign at least, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's also proof of concept, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
you have an idea, you put together a story idea, you send it out to some people,
Mhm.
and they'll begin to write back. And at some point, at least law of numbers says somebody will say, yeah, I'll publish and I'll give you money, you know.
Exactly.
And
And
then
also, I'm going to Oaxaca next month for about a week, and I've carved out another extra week. I'm going with my wife to do some traveling. By the way, completely off topic, not relate. Sort of related to this work, but me and my wife actually have a small social enterprise that we started a couple of months ago. I'm just sending you guys the website. Uh, have a look and spread the word if you think this work is interesting. So we're
Yeah.
going for this. We collaborate with artisans in Oaxaca to create products for sale. We're creating a new market for them in the global north. So this project takes me to Oaxaca quite a bit. So we'll be spending some time there.
Wow, that's a beautiful website, man.
Thank you. And
You're so busy, mate. How have you got enough time for a nap?
exactly. I mean, that's what I wonder. I do work pretty fast. Yeah, I'm a fast. I don't spend too much time on things, so I'm efficient with my work. Is how I accomplish things. Plus, I have a good partner in my wife.
Yeah.
She takes care of a lot of things. So anyway, planning out a strategy for Oaxaca, developing the stories that we discussed over the past few weeks. So just strategy at this stage, like Sid
Beautiful.
said. Yeah, it's a slow time of the thinking, putting ideas together, making those phone calls, trying to set
Yeah.
up things. Even though it's slow, I think it's development work, which is important.
Yeah. It takes time to build that foundation, I think. How did you find the National Geographic editor?
On Twitter. So I follow
Oh,
a bunch
yeah.
of editors on Twitter, and she said she seems like a young Ali Yang, I think is her name.
Okay.
She's a young. I think. Let me pull her up email. I'll find out. So she's looking for stories on places and community, and she said, "I'm looking for stories, so I'm open to pitches. Give me a shout." I said, "Okay."
Well done. Yeah, great.
So I found. I mean, she had her email, Ali Yang. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wrote to her, and she wrote back saying, "Hey, let me run this by my other editor. Get back to you." And like you said, at least she's open to the idea, right?
Yeah.
So I gave her a week or two and then follow up.
I also think that in the worst case scenario, even if she doesn't take the piece or you never hear from her again, I mean, honestly, I think you will. But I think it's validation that the story idea is interesting. So
That's true.
So from my perspective, it would be worth when you're down there making those photographs anyway, because I'm sure if National Geographic are willing to look at the idea, I'm sure another outlet would definitely buy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's her. Yeah,
I would hope.
Yeah.
It's great, man. Well done.
Thank you.
I love those little stories. Success.
Yeah.
How you doing, Spike? What you been up to?
I'm good, man. Working hard at the moment.
Yeah.
Things have got busy. Doing a lot of medical coverage. which is interesting. So tomorrow I'm shooting in an operating room, shooting a patient who's having deep brain stimulation, I think to cure Parkinson's. So they put, well, even while he's awake, they're not putting him fully to sleep. They put a hole in his head. I'm sure it's pretty small. I don't really know yet. I guess I'll see tomorrow. And they put electrodes really deep into his brain.
Wow.
That stimulate the part that is misfiring and causing his shakes and stuff like that.
Very cool.
So that'll be interesting. Yeah.
Is that video spec or photos?
Yeah, video. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not personal work. It's an assignment for a hospital.
Oh wow. Okay.
Down here. Yeah, I'm excited, man. It's gonna be a good one.
Yeah.
But I'm not really working on my personal stuff at the moment. I'm just taking assignments, and I'm getting itchy for the artistic process again, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I took a trip down, I'll say rural Ontario, because I feel like I'm barely out of Scarborough in the city sometimes with the way work has been. But I caught up with some of my boys after we haven't been able to, see each other for a while. And I have a friend who's been doing development properties, like flipping places. He's Afghani. So, on the drive there, we were chatting, and, he was telling me he was doing a little bit of resettlement work for immigrants who are coming in here. So I kind of gave him a pre-pitch, because I was starting to go back. It's funny, I feel like some of the stories that I started documenting kind of were like always closely connected to me, which was a good way to, find someone that I was comfortable with, and, find stories that were close to me first. So we started getting chatting, and, I was always looking at how do you look at, refugee resettlement over here. And Cornwall is this interesting for anybody who lives in Toronto, most people won't get out. But in terms of property development, the housing market, everybody's started to, leave Toronto in some fashion, because housing is just ridiculously expensive over here. So there's a shortage, housing crisis over here for a lot of spaces, just because nothing's affordable within the Toronto price range. So you're looking at, like, within Toronto right now, to buy a house, you're looking at, nothing's less than $1 million for a house over here. So everybody's, tending to push themselves out. It worked during the pandemic, but now, places, people are coming back into the city. So he's developing these properties, and he had a resettlement worker, immigration resettlement worker, reach out to him to see if he could, support. And him being Afghani, obviously, it hits close to home. His family kind of left there during that time. Even his uncle, like, he had family who didn't get out. So yeah, I kind of just, had a chat with him just to kind of open the doors. And, we're friends. We grew up, we traveled the world together. So it was an easy pitch. There was no real worries, but I'm trying to also think about how to define that. While I'm doing all these projects, I'm really trying to push back into that long-term, that work around documenting stuff, trying to understand what I have a closer connection to. That would give me an easier access to do that long form documentary. That doesn't also eat up, sometimes when you pitch a project, you don't know how long it's going to take to actually get done. So unless you have like a strong idea. So I was sitting on that and it was good to kind of get outside of Toronto, because a lot of my work has always been here. So even from a grants perspective, it's like, for funding, it's good to be able to like shoot outside of Toronto and Ontario, allowing me to then tap into, maybe some of the provincial funding or even the national funding down the road, and then find teams. So I've been also trying to do a little bit of that searching for that self-directed projects to see if there's any work that I could start doing maybe at some point this year.
That's nice, man. Yeah, well, I have a long list of story ideas that are kind of there for a rainy day. I'm sure you do as well.
How do you map out that process? Like when you're going through like the ideation, because I know you chat a little bit about research, and I'm sure there's a story idea that comes up, but how do you start to like, chapterize that work and refine it further down with something like that?
For me, it's honestly just it's probably 25% imagination and then 75% research and validation of imagination. So I'll find that seed of a story idea that I think is interesting, and then I'll try and try and get myself away from the Google and all that, and I'll look at scientific journals a little bit because that they're factual and mostly they contain unpublished stories or at least new findings.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go out and I sit in the garden or I sit in my hammock or something like that, and then I try and think of all the eventualities out of that seed of an idea, you know. So if you're talking about, try and think about all the different directions that story could run. So if you're thinking about immigration, oh my goodness, I mean, it can go anywhere, you know. And then it's really just a brain dump, onto a notepad or a Word document. And then try to pick the, you know, 5 or 6 chapters, 5 or 6 of those ideas, sub ideas that are interesting, and get researching. Yeah, that's pretty vague.
Yeah. The minute I was like, well, I guess I'm going to cultural Toronto, Canada itself. You know, it's been a good hub, I guess, because our population is sparse. Like we opened the doors to a lot of community. So like the largest Tamil population outside of Sri Lankan is in Toronto. The largest Ukrainian population is in Canada. Like, you know, Toronto being a good hub for it too.
Right.
Afghan too. I think the Afghan population obviously spread out. There's larger places, larger camps in Pakistan, but there was this, it was a little, I think that the communities felt hurt over here because, you know, when the Afghan crisis happened with, you know, everybody having to be pushed out the door, there was no support. There was limits in terms of like what Afghan refugees could come. And then with the Ukrainian war and, like, you know, the crisis is happening now, Canada opened up its doors and said there was no limits. And there was like a huge disparity between like, hey, we just went through this a month ago and we could not get people over here. We still have people there. But, you know, it's almost like, you know, this, there's a lot of discussion in the news and media also about how this was treated in the public eye, like a war in Syria that's been on for 11 years versus, you know, a war that's over here, how it's seen by different people, the context of that, it being a European war versus, you know, a war in the global South. The reactions from, you know, different communities. The Palestinian community over here is also pretty big. So, you know, you find these cultural dialogues, you know, that are not in mainstream media. I think it's interesting. You know, it's good just being in Toronto because it's so multicultural. So I grew up with a lot of Palestinian guys. I grew up with a lot of Afghani guys. So those cultural parts that are not shared, that are really kept close, there is an access there. And I'm trying to define that, and while also respecting the access, right? Like it's, you know, they'll let you into their worlds, you know, they'll give you that trust. And then you have to navigate the politics of it too, because there's that part. How much is, if it is political, I know anytime you get into conversations around Palestine over here, it gets really political. It's really hard, right, to publicize anything without getting blacklisted or you know, having people come at you. So I've always tried to navigate that, and I did that recently because 2019 I took a trip to Israel for my boy's wedding, and I traveled into the West Bank. You know, just I did a short tour, and you know, I had to because, you know, I grew up in Palestine. I couldn't go down to Israel without visiting Palestine. You know, to kind of see, and you know, it opened up my eyes. I grew up in the Gulf, so it felt a little bit like home. You know, being born and spending so many years there. And then I got stuck with this thing of like, how do I document this right? You know, to actually, and not just be a travel photographer that's just taking pictures, but how do I actually tell this story? Which, you know, so yeah, a lot of openness is what I'm dealing with right now. I'm trying to refine that. So I think I'm gonna sit on that a little bit more and try to figure out like what are those points I can refine, with the hopes of eventually, I think with every story thread that I find here, I want to find a way back to like an origin point somewhere overseas and maybe get that funded if I can.
That's nice. I think it's also when you look for, when you have that germ of an idea and you're writing down the possible angles or possible chapters, it's looking for which of those chapters is of course the most visual, but also which one allows you the excuse to ask permission to enter somebody's world for a long period of time. So like, I'm trying to think of examples on immigration. perhaps it's a Ukrainian community that have got to Toronto, and now they are, perhaps they've set up a boxing gym. You know what I mean? Or so you'd look down your chapters and you'd be like, Ukrainian, or let's just say any group of refugees. You've probably got a neighborhood where they hang out because people like to group together. Okay, or you've got sports teams that they might form so that they've got some solidarity together, or I'd always look for one of those groups where something physical and collective is happening, and hopefully it also relates to their journey, their plight, and then I'd kind of look for a narrative around that. It's that looking for that chapter that gives you that door in to those people, to that community, without having to force your way in, or without having to rely on just making portrait images, which are valid, but it's harder to get to the meat of the story like that. Or like religious groups, or perhaps it's an immigrant community who have been there for, perhaps it's a Ukrainian immigrant community who've been in Toronto for years already, and now they're setting themselves up to welcome new Ukrainian immigrants and help them begin to get to grips with Toronto. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's it's definitely I think there's so many interesting angles. So it's going down the rabbit hole long enough where you can find a carrot that's there. I guess that's how I put it, right?
That is right. Yeah.
That's helpful. Thanks, Spike.
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, it's an open conversation, right? There's so much that can be documented, and at the same time as finding things that, for me, I always want to explore the story that's not being told.
Yeah.
Right. Like, how do I share that story that needs to be told, and it's not in the mainstream media. I'm always going on that angle. Like, it's not in the mainstream media. Nobody's covering it. And then you see sometimes in the rabbit hole a little longer, because it's everything. As soon as something becomes a popular topic, it's covered. Right.
Yeah.
So a little bit more, I think, exploration. But I'm also starting to get back into just practicing and shooting again, which is cool.
Or it could be like entrepreneurship in small communities. Like, how are they making their money? How are they self-supporting? Are they taking construction jobs? Are they sweeping roads? Are they, maybe that's interesting too. I personally, I really like stories of people who are like an underdog, who are blue collar, who are working hard for their money and then succeeding. That's what I like. I like to find people in,
You're right on the portraiture piece too. I found myself maybe in that little trap of like, it's quick for me to get portraits, but it doesn't speak to that visual journey of being able to document someone over a longer period of time, and I'm watching them. And when I think about portraits to show action, like you just mentioned a blue collar, which is like right off the bat, that's something that can be documented. There's more there. So it is something I need to sit into also and be able to document long term. But you're right, you even mentioned like how other people are opening up the doors, and that's what I'm the angle I was looking at even with my friend was that he's Afghan family, his dad's kind of done that in some way, supporting other Afghans coming in. So I think that might be an interesting point to look at. So I'm waiting some confirmations on how that works out with him. By summer I'll probably it might be a story angle, and then it allows me to then go, because I think there is certain cities and towns outside of Toronto are now looking at the numbers of how many people they let into that specific town. So it's going to be like a resettlement option outside of Toronto, which is interesting, because you never, most people don't even, if you're living in Toronto, you live in Toronto, you kind of live in a bubble a little bit, right? Most people are not venturing out to like 3 hours out to Cornwall. It's closer to an hour from Ottawa, and it shares a bridge border with the States. So you can get to New York
Oh,
City in 6 hours from Cornwall, which I had no clue about. And I've been in Canada for like how many years now, right? So it's not until you venture out that you kind of like you see some of these stories or these possibilities that come to life.
yeah. I think also those blue collar stories or blue collar angles, those communities are normally more physical. That, you know, those jobs, whether you're a mechanic or a construction worker, or, you know, whether you're climbing the ladder back up towards, I don't know, well, you're climbing the ladder upwards towards greater income, I suppose. But but those jobs lend themselves well to photos, because it's not just a person in an office working on a computer all day that can't be, you can make one photo, but it's a boring photo.
Yeah.
If you're in a community of people who are working a boxing gym or farming, or, you know, then it's a tangible physical thing that makes for nice work, I think, you know, for me. Yeah. I
Sid,
got you thinking.
yeah, sorry to interrupt, Spike, but I have an idea for Sid. There is this book by an American, I want to say historian, oral historian. Do you know Stutz Terkel?
No.
No? Let me send you his book. So there's a book called Working, and this guy was in the 60s, like he lived in the 60s and I want to say 50s. Very well-known oral historian. He did a series of interviews with people doing jobs, just regular jobs.
Dope. Thanks
And
for
he'd
sharing that.
spent time with them and wrote this book, fascinating book called Working. So basically interview all kinds of random people in Chicago, right? And I think you can find a PDF online for free if you Google hard enough. And it's an incredible book. And I in fact, the photo shoot I did of my barber was
Yeah.
inspired by this, in a way that I thought, okay, why don't I document work, like regular work of people in photographs, right? A barber, landscaper, engineer, whatever, right? Chef, right? So visual documentary of work. I wish I'd done this during COVID, because that angle would have been very interesting visually. But even now, I think it would be interesting. And maybe you can call it Afghan working, or, you know, Afghan jobs or Afghan workers, something like that.
I mean, it's perfect timing. So this a little bit on this grant that I just I pulled in from the city of Toronto. We pitched it around this idea called the city of industry, which is a term that was given to the Golden Mile area that we're focusing on. Side note, part of this funding also for the cities, because the city is dumping a massive amount of plans, money into redeveloping this entire area. So there's a little contention with gentrification of that neighborhood, because they have a new subway line coming up. But it was a perfect opportunity for us to jump and start building there, because it's a part that we haven't also been able to cover. And there's it was known as the Golden Mile of Industry, the first industrial park for Canada. Our focus of what we're hoping to do, grants will come up with this concept, and then halfway through we realize it's harder to get some of those stories, so we start to make it more open-ended. But what we're trying to do is hopefully go in there and just document entrepreneurship stories. That was the angle that we're leading. So it's dope talking about the blue collar stuff, because that entire area, I have a boy who's a mechanic down there. I shot his story for Zuma Press, just like a quick run and gun of like how mechanics were picking up work during the pandemic. And that entire area is like automobile parts. It's really, it's become more big box shops, but like, I don't know if you guys know the Thermos, it's called Thermos, the brand Thermos. There's a Thermos road over there because it was the first manufacturing plant for Thermos back in the day. So I'm going to take a look at that book. Thanks, David.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'm going to take a look at that as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful idea for a story, isn't it? Or it doesn't even have to be a story. Yeah, just a photo series. Yeah, Afghan working or Ukraine working. It's very simple. I think that's a nice point actually as well. I think maybe we overcomplicate sometimes when it doesn't need to be that complicated. Simple is often better, I guess. Hey, thanks for your question in the forum as well, Sibi.
Yes, Spike. No, I'm struggling with that, and honestly, I'm getting a little overwhelmed with because I usually don't store so many photos. Like I'm the absolute newbie here. So I'm like struggling, like what the hell? Like, what do I do with all these photos and where do I store them? And is it Google Drive or is it my hard drive, or it's a lot of gigabytes.
It's a lot of gigabytes, yeah.
Yeah.
And the rule is as well, never delete anything.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because one day you'll
Mm.
think,
Sure.
where did I store that Bitcoin?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, but I
Wow.
can show you right now. Look, I use these things.
Okay, what's that?
Lacey's.
Yeah, the brand name is Lacie.
It's a hard drive?
LACIE, and yeah, it's just an external hard drive. You just plug it in,
Okay.
just
And
dump
how
all
do
your
you
photos.
organize them? I know each one of us has our own system, but do you organize it by year or by shoots, or what's your system?
I do a by my naming convention is the year, then the month, then the date. So today would be what, 22, and I'm British, so it would be 4, then 5.
Okay.
And then I do a underscore, and then I do like just a description of the shoot. So
Okay.
So
your folders are organized by dates.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's it. And then I just dump all the images from a shoot into the folder, and then I'll make subfolders in the folder with the same naming convention.
Okay.
And just at the end, like underscore raw or underscore and a separate one underscore edited.
Sure. And again, newbie question: when you shoot RAW and JPEG, right? Because that's what I'm doing. I'm doing shooting both RAW and JPEG.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
But what's do you always need RAW files, or?
The raw files are much easier to edit.
Okay.
So they come out like there's much more dynamic range and much more information in that file. So you can manipulate it way more than a JPEG. If you try to do sometimes the same things to the JPEG, the image will start to fall apart a little bit. But the con is that the raw files are obviously much bigger.
Large, yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes, like Sid just mentioned that he shot for Zuma Press, the other day, and I assume that was a really fast turnaround. So what he might have wanted to do is shoot JPEG and RAW together, keep the JPEG for himself to edit later, and have keep the RAW for himself to edit later, and have the JPEG to email immediately to the client if they want it immediately. I'd say if it's just for you, just shoot RAW.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love this topic. I'm a systems workhorse, like constantly trying to like refine it, and yeah, no, that naming convention 100% works. I use the same, so I feel good that I'm not too far off.
Oh, is it similar, huh?
Yeah, same. Organize it by year, and then I'm essentially having that same. I think maybe I studied British syllabus, so I have the same naming convention of like month, the date, and then the file, making sure the raw is there. I never had a system before. It took me a couple of years to refine, and I think just looking at other creators, how they refine. Like once you get into finding a workflow that goes to you, it just sticks in your head. Yeah.
So that would be
just.
And and Spike, I read your response quickly, and you said you have 3 backups usually.
Yeah, I have. So I have one of these. I have 2 of these at a time, and I duplicate them. So so this one is the same as this one, and then when they're full, I'll put them in storage somewhere. But what I like to do is keep one in a different physical building. Because I'm a doomsday prepper, and if my house burns down,
sure, of course,
then I lose everything.
Makes sense. Or an earthquake, right?
Or an earthquake, yeah.
In California.
Yeah, that's right, man. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, really simple though. Just a duplicate, and then fill it up, and then start again.
Okay, makes sense.
Easy. Yeah.
Makes sense. And the subscription service, any recommendation on that in terms of sharing files with people and stuff?
Oh, in terms of sharing work with clients?
Yeah. How do you do that?
I just do it through my website is hosted by Squarespace.
Okay.
And I just do it through there. the same way that you've been making galleries for each of your stories.
Yeah.
I just share the URL.
Okay. Okay.
There are websites like Photo Shelter who allow you to make that lightbox it's like a backdoor link for a client to view the gallery, and they can like your photos, and they can they can give things a star rating, they can comment, they can download. But again, I think I've never really, it's good, but it might be overcomplication again.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking for a simple method.
I've never really needed to do that.
Okay.
Sid, have you?
I use Photo Shelter. I use a Lightroom. I found it like it's good because it's professional. You can send emails from it. But it just felt like this added thing that people have to sign up. I didn't like it. I eventually moved to just like having everything on Squarespace. WeTransfer now has this portal system, which is similar to Lightbox in Photo Shelter, where you can share just like this portal with your client to have more. I think there's an add-on if you want to have like unlimited ones. Because so sometimes I'll just get the WeTransfer for the month when I know I'm working with one specific client,
right?
Set it up, and if I know specifically if there's feedback on edits, that's when I found it most useful. Be like you can see the image, product shots specifically. I know there's usually quite a bit of feedback, so it's quick to just send it and they can download the images there. So I started using WeTransfer now. And I'm keeping that as a standard anytime we have a project, just to put it in the budget where if I know I need to send out to funders or people part of the project, I'll keep it in the budget. And then as we close that project off, I'll send it all through WeTransfer. Even between people, it's WeTransfer is the go-to right now.
Yeah.
Versus having, I think Google Drive, I tend to do it with my teams, but it's slow and it doesn't download as good. So I found like I'm pushing people now, just like, you got content to send me the edit, send it on WeTransfer, because it's just that much more quicker.
Okay.
Good.
Well, what does it cost, Sid?
Oh, let me send a link. I'll send a link to you guys.
Okay, thank you.
WeTransfer is free, and then if you,
Yeah.
it's really good. And then if you want to add functionality, I think it only goes up to like $12 a month.
Okay, that's not bad.
And actually, at Photo Shelter, because I had the same journey as you said, I used to use Photo Shelter, and back then it was $30 a month. It's probably more now. And then I just got annoyed because all the extra functionality was overcomplication, and went to Squarespace. And now I transfer my files through WeTransfer if I need to actually send anything. Yeah.
I think the maker. Sorry, you're saying Spec?
Oh, and if I need to send a large file, if I'm trying to send video work, I use Massive.
Massive.
Yeah. Frame.io, yeah, perhaps, but Sabith Frame.io is just for, well, it's mostly for video. So,
Massive, yeah.
but you could look at it if you want. I'll put the name in there. But Massive is the same as WeTransfer, but it's incredibly fast upload download, and it charges you per gigabyte of transfer rather than a flat fee. So just a different version really. And it allows you, it also allows you, I don't know whether this might be helpful for you, Sid, it allows you to make a portal on your Squarespace site and brand it for yourself.
That is interesting.
So
I will definitely check that out.
It's quite cool.
Charges
25 cents per gig, which is
not bad at all.
It's okay.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that I think that the deal breaker for Photo Shelter for me, because I got it essentially for the e-commerce component also, but it doesn't really have much. It didn't have, first of all, like getting stuff in Canada was always hard. That's what I'm typically finding.
Right.
Building something in Canada, getting suppliers here. A lot of the stuff being based in the States, you wouldn't get that ability. So a lot of stuff, people would, if most of my clients are Canadian, they're always going to be shipping from the States.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, that's not work. But really what killed it was that the functionality of designing the websites, it didn't really give you too much, it just didn't work. Squarespace does a much better job at giving you that functionality for galleries, for doing a lot more on it. So yeah, Squarespace won me over some time ago, and I've just been building with them since.
Yeah. What's your website on, Sabi?
Mine is WordPress.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, WordPress.
Okay.
And I got actually one of my graduate assistants is a tech guy from India, so he helped set it up very nicely with all the anti-spam and all that stuff. And I don't know how he set it up. It's like a rock now, and I don't know how to get. Every time I need to make some changes, I need to get back to him.
Oh, okay.
I think it's nicely set up.
WordPress is intense.
Yeah.
WordPress is intense for development.
It is, yeah.
It's work. So good on you for getting somebody on the WordPress.
Exactly. By the way, before I forget, Spec, this book is again for you.
Thank you.
I started reading it. It's a medical doctor. This guy writes a lot on stuff. I just started reading this particular book today. It's interesting. I think you like it for the kind of stuff you're doing. You may find it interesting.
Thank you.
And Sid, I don't know if you know this guy either, but
yes, mate.
Okay, I'll check him out. New York Times bestseller, huh?
Yeah. He's written quite a few books. There's one called Checklist Manifesto, which is pretty famous. It's all about checklists and stuff, which actually you could use in your course as well.
Oh my goodness. The thing I'm finding with the membership is there's endless amounts of things that people want to know and that I want to teach. And I think that, I don't know whether you guys have had a chance to read what I posted today, but I think it might be a little off topic for our conversations today, but well, certainly relevant to Ukraine. But also, I remember when we were talking a while back, Sabith, and you were saying that some of the functionality of this membership is a little clunky. I took your advice and I've been looking at Kajabi and Teachable and thinking about making the jump to something better as well for myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it works. I haven't encountered any major issues.
No, but it's about it's always about refining, isn't it? Whatever we're doing, whether we're a writer or a programmer or a guy who paints houses,
for sure,
just want to do it better.
For sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry, Spike. I was just gonna say, like, I tried. It's interesting because I'm seeing these platforms come up more. We were actually looking at implementing something for Scarborough Made because we're doing the mentorship stuff. So we wanted to make it a little bit more streamlined too, versus us always having to jump on a talk and do the same presentation. We're probably gonna just start recording our content once. That will allow us to like just have more youth come in. Where just like even me and my co-founder, my boy Alex, it's harder for us to like line up a schedules because of travel dates between different countries and just that workflow. So we're like, okay, let's find an easier way that we can continue teaching, have youth come on to learn, creating over here in communities in the best accessible way that we can keep on doing it and sustain it. So Teachable is interesting because I don't know if you heard about the Future Group. Have you heard about the Future? They do a lot of stuff and coaching around. Let me pull it up. This guy named Curious Do. I picked up a couple of their courses just for learning around the creative industries. They're a lot more design based, and they got a huge following, which they've built over many years, and they have an entire team covering different angles from typography to pitching in terms of the creative design client. Check out their stuff. I found out that they're on Teachable because when I picked up one of their courses on finance just to get my bookkeeping back in order, financial management, they had it there. And I tried out, who else? I tried Kajabi. So it's interesting because it's become more of a I think the pandemic also did this too, right? There's more, online stuff, and you see Squarespace now implemented with their membership platform, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Patreon. They also have, so it's I feel like there's an economy behind it, so it is going to be one of those things where you can keep on refining it to find the best fit until you find something that sticks like a glove. And also really, we're talking about workflow. Part of it is just making your workflow really easy to manage, where you don't want to have to do too much. Like a photo shelter required a lot of uptake with adding photos, and it still didn't look clean. I think everybody wants a clean user experience, which is, sometimes you jump between platforms. I tend to do that a lot. I test out a lot before I find myself in that. I'm going to stick with this.
Yeah. It's about, trying to streamline what you're giving to people or helping people with, isn't it? So you can maintain enough energy to help them with the next thing. So, recording your content might be a good idea. And Sabith, I was also thinking that if you get frustrated with having to go back to your WordPress programmer often, then I can probably talk you through setting up a very easy Squarespace photo portfolio.
Yeah, I'll take up that offer with you. And actually, I was thinking, Spike, I don't know what you think of this. Right now, I'm using my academic website, the one that I have, for photos as well. I was thinking, why don't I have a separate one just for photos, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll take up your offer. Yeah, if you have some time, I'd love to chat with you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really quite straightforward. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you might not have to rely on somebody else to update you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because that might be annoying. Yeah. Hey, we've got a few minutes left, and we've been just shooting the shit, which I'm really enjoying. But can I help you guys with anything? Have you got any like burning questions that you need answering?
Sabith, do you have anything? I feel like I could chat.
Okay. Yeah, I do have a quick one.
Oh, so, yeah, sure.
Spike, remember the robotics story?
Yes.
So I happenstance, I met a guy who runs a company which does robotics work. So I've set up a meeting with him. He's said he's busy. He'll get back to me in about 2 weeks. So things are taking a little longer than expected. But again, people are busy, right? I'm busy. You're busy. Everyone's busy. Yeah. But the good thing is at least I'm making those connections. I was thinking of reaching out randomly to people, not completely randomly, but people who are relevant to my story, like a public utility that uses drones for inspections, right?
Yeah.
In my local thing. Maybe even I was looking at Vanguard. I use Vanguard for some of my investments. So they have this robo investing advisor thing going on. So maybe I thought, let me call Vanguard. I'm the customer, so they should talk to me, right?
Yeah.
So that's the angle I'm thinking of reaching out to people and just interviewing, doing more reportage and then looking for the visual angle later. Any thoughts on that? So maybe try to build the whole narrative first, which is where I'm pretty good at, and then look for visuals, request for, because I think it's harder to get, for me at least, it's harder to get to meet people physically, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I'm able to crack the emails and phone calls, also maybe COVID and a lot of other things, but I wonder if you have any thoughts on that, how to get to meet people quickly.
Yes, I think you've hit the nail on the head. So what I see a lot with people who come into journalism as a visual person, a photographer or a videographer, their method of finding stories is they are normally scared of talking to people. They normally do not like doing journalistic reporting. They don't like doing the legwork. They don't like having the conversations because they don't feel, and I'm probably speaking a little bit from personal experience as a younger man. I had to learn this myself a fairly hard way. It doesn't feel, as a visual person, phoning somebody up and having an hour-long conversation doesn't feel like you're doing any work. It feels like a waste of time until you learn the lesson that without putting the time in to meet that person, figure out what they're about, you don't get to the next step. So yeah, you're totally correct. You're totally correct. You make your phone calls, record them if you can, or write notes, or however you do it. But I know this is this is an area you're comfortable. And then I think you're right. I think as once you're making those interviews, you'll see things that are visual. You'll see those threads that are visual that you can then backtrack, call that person again and say, actually, can I photograph as well? Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. And again, I think you have more experience on this, and probably even said, how do you approach like a big chain store or big grocery like Sprouts or one of these big ones? Does each one, do you just go, you obviously need the store manager or someone's permission, right, to go and shoot, or how do permissions there work?
You will, yeah. I honestly don't.
Corporate harder.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was just saying. I always find corporate harder because the chain and the bureaucracy where they have to push it up.
Yeah. Well, I try for this. I try for the local store manager first.
Okay.
They might let you, or they might try and push it up the ladder, which might get a little bit annoying. I don't think it's impossible though. I think that if it goes up the ladder, all you're going to need to do is come to them with probably a 1 or 2 page written pitch, perhaps, or maybe even not. But you'll have to have, if you do go up the ladder to a corporate person, you're going to have your elevator pitch really nailed down.
Sure.
They will probably want to know who you are and where you're going to publish as well, which is fine, but it gets harder.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm usually able to bullshit my way through.
Good.
Gifted the gab.
Pretty good at that.
Well, I mean, if you could go in the back door and photograph on an iPhone or something as you're in the store.
Yeah.
It depends what quality you want your images to be and whether you want them to fit together as a cohesive visual narrative.
Yeah.
If that might work.
No, makes sense.
Difficult though.
Yeah.
Or I wonder whether there's here's an idea then. What about chasing down the manufacturer? So I assume you're looking for in a store, you're looking for the remote checkouts.
Right.
Or self checkouts. Why don't you chase down the manufacturer of the checkouts?
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Or somebody who's testing them or something like that. Or an installer.
Yeah. I
wonder whether an installation company would have some just around a warehouse.
Yeah. No, all great ideas.
Yeah.
I'll think this through a little more.
Yeah, but I love that story, man. I think that would turn into a really nice piece.
Yeah, I really want to publish in The Wired for some reason. I read The Wired
really?
regularly. Yeah, I read it, right. One of the magazines I subscribe to. So that's my goal. Nat Geo and Wired. If I publish in these two,
yeah,
I'll be your fan for life, Spike.
I guess I'll be your fan for life as well.
So we'll see.
It's lovely.
Like
man.
I had a quick the article that you put today. I appreciated it because I think it's something that's not really talked about a lot.
Oh yeah.
And it's a harder. I mean, I feel like we'll bring it up in another Q&A because you could probably share quite a bit on the article in terms of like the safety factors of like diving into places. It's not. I think as a freelancer, sometimes you overlook that. So I've always, tried to either I find myself in places where I could document a lot of stories, but the safety factor was there. Most of my stuff where I started wanting to document was in local income neighborhoods where there's a huge challenge around gangs, right? And so navigating that. So I feel like I have some questions that will drop your way. But it was really helpful just kind of getting that perspective. I think I ended up moving away from that direction of like, kind of going, because that was, I think when I was first traveling, I was in that prime of just, being able to go and shoot. I was always looking for those angles, looking for places where I could capture something. I don't know if it was driven by conflict, but I just found myself in neighborhoods that were just a little bit more roughneck. So it felt like home. So it was easier for me to walk into, have a conversation. And I think I started moving away from that when I realized I was putting myself probably more at risk. And I wanted to be able to take care of stuff at home more, to be there. So I started moving away from that direction. But it was helpful to kind of, just hear about those practices as I start to look at stuff and find myself back into travel. What would you say about insurance for cameras when you're going out and doing that? Like how do you secure, your physical part is important. That's, I think, the primary piece, but how do you ensure that you're also, getting everything kind of covered from a business angle?
Yeah, that's the one piece that I didn't put on there. And I was writing it the other day and I was thinking, should I dig into camera insurance? And that I guess the idea, isn't it, with all of that is to reduce any personal or financial risk. And I guess if you're carrying a $5,000 camera and you drop it in the mud, then you're pretty sick. The companies I've used for camera insurance, oh my goodness, there's one called Professional Photographers of America, and I think it's just ppa.com.
Yeah.
You know that?
Yeah, I signed up on it during the pandemic because they were just offering free courses.
Okay.
But I didn't know they offer insurance, so that's good to know.
It's really good. Up $27 a month, and they insure up to $10,000.
That's not bad at all.
I've never made a claim with them though, so I don't know how
good they are,
how easily they pay out. I had another company, but they only insured out of the UK, and they were quite expensive, so that's not really worth mentioning.
And does that cover, does that cover in risks? So I know certain insurance that they know you're going to be documenting in zones that are at risk, like those countries are typically blacklisted. So for example, Palestine is an example of me going in, looking at a story that I would want to document down the road, going
Right.
with community contacts, certain places like that, are they insurable? I don't know. It's something I guess I'd have to look into the fine print, but
the company that I used in the UK allowed me worldwide coverage, any country, and for any type of damage, theft, flooding. I can't remember the name of them. Oh, I can't remember. I'd have to look it up. But they only operate for people who have a UK address. But I'm sure there's other companies that, I mean, PPA would probably be pretty good. But I don't know, honestly. I don't know about the fine print of
there's always something you got to check into before
if somebody throws a burning tire at you in Palestine. Yes.
Yeah.
Be careful.
It's true, right? Like I find like with a lot of insurance, it'll give you coverage until they know like the situation in terms of what you're walking into, and then a whole bunch of exclusions that kind of come around from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just in general, like even things like when you're going and documenting, you're typically running and gunning. You're not thinking about like even like a vest, for example, and if it's an active zone where things can happen. So I've always been interested in cultivating that piece back up and getting assignments and getting larger assignments. So I know like the UN, I was talking to someone like how that works. Yeah, and they cover full security detail, right?
Yeah.
Where they have one photographer who comes in and documents it. So I've always been trying to find my way of like, hey, how do I get back into being able to document places like that? Obviously, anybody who's doing it's been probably shooting stuff overseas internationally for some time. They probably have one of those contracts. So yeah, I was curious about that also with the insurance part, and I'll probably have more questions around that as I start to find more zones to get into as things open up.
Yeah, I think we all, in terms of insurance and security, we all think of worst case scenario, and the worst case scenario is if you're in the Ukraine or whatever, and you need a bullet vest, but that is not the majority of cases. And for the majority of, I mean, for example, if Sabith goes to a warehouse to photograph a self-checkout machine and trips on a piece of metal and cuts his leg, or you're photographing Ukrainian construction workers in Toronto and you fall off a step or something like that, it's just a regular injury. I mean, photo and video is quite a physical profession. You can have injuries just in your doorstep, and it's just great to be able to know how to fix yourself up real quick. It's just great to have a bandage in your bag. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or you could drop a camera as you're just getting into your car to go to do a commercial shoot in a hospital tomorrow. And it's just nice to have that insurance on your camera. Not necessarily for those super scary worst case scenarios. Just if I drop my camera tomorrow on the way to my commercial shoot, the commercial shoot isn't going to pay as much as my camera. So at 7 a.m. in the morning, I'm already at a financial loss. I don't know. I also think it's about protecting for just the everyday, and not trying to scare ourselves into I know that wasn't what that article was about, really. I should have maybe framed it a little bit different, framed it for the everyday, but I think it's all, I think that's a valid perspective as well, you know. Just,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's true. I think and I mean, I'm always interested in like those situations. So maybe my mind goes there first when I'm bulletproof vests and tourniquets. I'm like, yeah, and like it's good. It's a good life skill to have, right? Like if you're in
Yeah.
a situation, shit can go down anywhere.
Yeah.
Even in the neighborhood that you're growing up into, you know, depending on what you're documenting, right?
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
thinking about certain situations like which again, time wise, like I'd say, but I remember even just Panama. Panama is a place that I've gone back like five times now.
Whoa.
And I love that place. And it has, you know, part of the exploration was documenting the culture there. You know, there was an MMA camp that was coming up, taking youth from the barrio. So I was really interested in continuing to go that and explore that. And there's a huge, you know, they have a large number of youth gangs over there. There's always a common conversation about the poverty over there. And then everybody's strapped, right? So you're in the wrong situation, wrong neighborhood in some of these places. So apart from the equipment getting jacked, you know, you also have that possibility, right, of you know, something going wrong. So sometimes you don't think about that as a freelancer because, you know, you try to find a contact that you're rolling in with, and then you build that way. But anything can happen, so it's good to be prepared, I guess, right?
Yeah, and the adrenaline's flowing, isn't it? And you're chasing that thing, and you're all of a sudden in a car, and you don't know where you are, and yeah, and then you can get in trouble like that. Are you married?
No, but I'm moving in with my girlfriend next month, so it's
Okay.
I've definitely taken on less risky stuff. I'll tell you that for sure.
Well, because I was going to say
for the last 4 years.
if you
For the last
wanted,
4 years, yeah. Sorry, you saying?
I was going to say if you wanted risky, I know the U.S. military, the army are always trying to hire conflict photographers.
Yeah.
But
it's funny you said that because I actually looked at the Canadian forces and the Canadian forces, and they have like the photography specialist. So I was looking at one point. I haven't swung that conversation over yet, but I'll let you know how that goes after the moving date.
They offered me the pay was $24,000 a year.
Oh my God. Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, rough $24,000 a year.
What do you do with that?
I don't know.
Is that for to buy cameras?
No. I
You
think
should ask them.
I don't know, man. Probably just mental health care, you know.
You need that.
You know,
Or buy
I'm
weed.
pretty. I'm pretty. Yeah, I know. I'm pretty sure it's the same training. Well, not gonna say the same training, but like the same. Like your salary is not much when you jump into this job. I think the excitement really is being able to use or capture something that nobody has access to. I feel like that's but yeah, 24,000. I don't know how far that would actually get you.
Wow.
No way. Yeah. No, I turned that down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, gents. We're about
Thank you.
60, 70 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go take a nap, I think, if you don't mind.
Sure, Spike.
No worries. Thanks,
Thank you,
Spike. Much
guys.
appreciated.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thanks
Spike.
for jumping on. I really appreciate the effort that you guys put into these conversations too. It's really nice talking to you guys.
Absolutely.
Pleasure.
All right, Spike. You can expect an email from me in a couple of days.
Good. Yes,
All right,
definitely email all your questions, and
All right,
I'll
sounds good.
see you both soon.
Sounds good. Take
Okay.
care.
Have a
Bye,
good one,
Bye.
guys.
Lots of love. Cheers.
See ya.
Peace.